Stop celebrating our survival and start dismantling what made it necessary. I want to tell you about someone who's changing the world in ways most people will never see on a magazine cover or a keynote stage. Her name is Emilia Lima, and she's a visionary leader whose work is quietly dismantling one of the most insidious barriers facing Black women entrepreneurs today. Amelia doesn't just talk about equity. She builds it. She creates pathways for women who've been told their dreams are too big, their resources too small, and their responsibilities too heavy. She's proving that when we remove barriers and create genuine support systems, extraordinary things happen. And what she taught me has fundamentally changed how I see resilience, entrepreneurship, and the stories we tell ourselves about success. Today, I want to share what Amelia revealed to me and what the data confirms about a truth we've been getting catastrophically wrong for far too long. We live in a world that worships at the altar of the entrepreneur. We glorify the hustle, we romanticize the grind, we celebrate the relentless pursuit of success as if exhaustion were a badge of honor. We tell stories of founders who sleep 4 hours a night, who sacrifice everything, who push through every obstacle with sheer determination. And we call this strength. We call this ambition. We call this the price you pay if you really want to make it. But here's what we conveniently leave out of these stories: we don't talk about who gets to be that entrepreneur. We don't talk about who has the luxury of sleeping only 4 hours because someone else is handling the children, managing the household, carrying the emotional labor. We don't talk about who has access to the networks that open doors before they even knock. We don't talk about who gets second chances, third chances, endless chances because investors see potential instead of risk. And we certainly don't talk about the women who are doing all of this, building businesses, raising children, holding families together, serving as the emotional anchor for everyone around them, and somehow still expected to show up with a smile and make it look effortless. When I sat down with Amelia Lima, she didn't just share insights, she shattered assumptions. She introduced me to women whose stories should be taught in every business school, celebrated in every entrepreneurship program, and held up as examples of what's possible when brilliance meets determination. Women like Carlin Persil. Let me tell you about Carlin. She's a Toronto based Black woman who founded Sister Talk Group, a leadership development platform for women of color. But before Sister Talk became a recognized force supporting hundreds of women across Canada, before Carlin was featured in major media outlets and partnering with corporations, before she became a thought leader on workplace equity, she was a single mother who had just lost her job after experiencing racism in the corporate sector. Think about that for a moment. Carlin didn't just lose employment, she lost her sense of safety in spaces that claimed to value diversity. She lost her financial stability while responsible for a child who depended on her. She faced the emotional toll of systemic discrimination while trying to figure out how to pay bills, put food on the table, and show up for her child without falling apart. Most people would have retreated. Most people would have played it safe, taken any job available, kept their head down. But Carlin did something different. She leveraged her personal savings, money she had worked hard to accumulate, money that was supposed to be her safety net, and she built a flexible business model. She created peer support networks among Black women entrepreneurs because the existing networks weren't designed for women like her. And today, Sister Talk Group is transforming lives, shifting corporate cultures, and proving that when Black women are given the space to lead, everyone benefits. Now, here's what's fascinating: we love this story, we love the triumph, we love the resilience. We share it on social media with fire emojis and applause, but we rarely ask the harder, more uncomfortable questions. Why did Carlin have to use her personal savings? Why wasn't there institutional support waiting for her? Why did she have to build her own network instead of accessing existing ones that should have welcomed her with open arms? And most importantly, how many other Carlins are out there right now with brilliant ideas and unshakable determination who won't make it because the barriers are just too high, too numerous, too exhausting. Let me share something that should make every single one of us deeply uncomfortable. Between 2017 and 2022, Black female owned businesses in the United States grew by 71.6%. That's not a typo. 71.6%, they outpaced every other demographic. Every single one. This is explosive growth. This is entrepreneurial fire. This is exactly what we say we want to see in a thriving economy. This should be front page news. This should be celebrated as an economic miracle. But here's the part that should stop us dead in our tracks. Despite this remarkable, unprecedented growth, Black women entrepreneurs received only a tiny fraction of venture capital funding. And when we look at employer business ownership, Black women hold only 3.3%, even though they represent 14.4% of the population. Let that sink in, really sink in. The fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in America is also the most underfunded, the most under resourced, and the most systematically overlooked. This isn't a pipeline problem. This isn't a skills gap. This isn't a lack of ambition or capability. This is a system that's failing to recognize brilliance when it doesn't fit the expected package. This is a system that's working exactly as it was designed to make success accessible for some and nearly impossible for others. Emilia Lima helped me understand something that's been gnawing at me for years. The women she works with aren't just building businesses, they're rebuilding themselves. Many of them came to entrepreneurship after devastating setbacks, job loss that shattered their confidence, relationship breakdowns that left them as single mothers navigating financial instability, facing bias in traditional workplaces that made it clear they would never be valued, never be promoted, never be seen as leadership material, no matter how hard they worked. They didn't start companies because they read a motivational quote on Instagram or attended a weekend seminar that fired them up. They started companies because survival demanded it, because providing for their children required it, because creating the life they deserved, the life they had been promised, if they just worked hard enough, meant they had no other choice. Entrepreneurship wasn't a dream, it was a necessity born from a system that failed them. And here's where it gets even more complex, even more layered. Many of these women are mothers, and motherhood in the context of entrepreneurship isn't just an added responsibility, it's a compounding factor that reshapes absolutely everything. The Found Hers Collective is a network supporting Black women entrepreneurs in Canada, particularly those balancing motherhood and business. When they started listening, really listening to their members, they discovered something that should fundamentally change how we design every business support system in existence. Their members reported that networking events were scheduled during parenting hours, making attendance impossible. Accelerator programs required in person attendance that conflicted with childcare responsibilities. Funding applications demanded time, focus, and energy that mothers simply didn't have after managing households, caring for children, and running businesses. Childcare costs were so high that attending a single workshop could mean choosing between professional development and groceries. Now, some people might hear this and think, well, that's just how it is. Entrepreneurship is hard. You have to make sacrifices. But here's what that perspective misses entirely. These aren't minor inconveniences. These are structural barriers disguised as neutral policies. When we design entrepreneurship programs around the assumption that founders have unlimited time, flexible schedules, and robust support systems at home, we're not creating equal opportunity. We're creating systems that work beautifully for some people and systematically lock out everyone else. And then we have the audacity to call it a meritocracy. But here's what gives me hope. The Found Hers Collective didn't just complain about these barriers, They didn't accept them as inevitable. They advocated for flexible accelerator programs. They promoted remote work tools. They partnered with co working spaces that offered childcare. They pushed for policy recommendations that would make inclusive entrepreneurship support the standard, not the exception. And the results? Transformative. More mother entrepreneurs participated in business programs. More women accessed resources that had previously been out of reach. More Black women founders became visible, vocal, and undeniable. They proved that when we remove barriers instead of asking women to jump higher, when we design systems that acknowledge people's full humanity, incredible things happen. Amelia shared something with me that I think about almost every day now. She said that Black women entrepreneurs often face what she calls the double burden. They're building businesses while also being the primary emotional and financial support for their families. They're navigating systemic discrimination while also trying to maintain their mental health and sense of self worth. They're proving themselves in rooms that weren't designed for them, that don't want them there, while also showing up as mothers, daughters, sisters, and community anchors. They're carrying everyone and everything. And what does society say to them? If you were really committed, you'd find a way. If you were really strong, you'd push through. If you were really capable, none of this would slow you down. We look at their exhaustion and call it a personal failing instead of a systemic design flaw. But strength isn't the issue here. Capability isn't the question. The issue is that we've built a system that requires superhuman effort from some people while offering others a clear, well funded, well supported path. And then we celebrate the ones who make it as exceptional as if their success proves the system works, instead of recognizing that their success happened despite a system designed to stop them at every turn. When Carlin Purcell built Sister Talk Group, she didn't just create a business, she created a sanctuary, a space where Black women could be vulnerable without judgment, where they could share their struggles without being told they weren't trying hard enough, where they could admit they were tired, scared, overwhelmed, and still be seen as capable, brilliant, worthy. She created a community where motherhood wasn't seen as a liability, but as a source of wisdom, perspective, and strength. She created partnerships with corporations and became a thought leader on workplace equity, shifting conversations, and changing policies. And most importantly, she inspired other Black women to pursue entrepreneurship, not by pretending it was easy, but by showing them it was possible, even when the odds were stacked against them. This is what Emilia Lima understands in her bones. This is what the data confirms over and over again. When we support Black women entrepreneurs, when we remove the barriers instead of asking them to be stronger, when we design systems that acknowledge their full humanity, their responsibilities, their realities, they don't just survive. They thrive. They create jobs. They foster economic growth. They transform communities. They prove that the potential was always there. We were just making it unnecessarily, cruelly hard to access. So here's my question for you, and I want you to sit with this. What if we stopped celebrating resilience and started dismantling the conditions that make it necessary? What if, instead of applauding Black women for pushing through impossible circumstances, we created circumstances that didn't require superhuman strength? What if we design funding systems, support networks, and business programs that actually worked for mothers, for women navigating trauma, for people rebuilding after setbacks? This isn't about lowering standards. This is about raising our awareness. This is about recognizing that when 71.6% growth comes from a group receiving almost no institutional support, We're not witnessing a feel good story. We're witnessing a massive, inexcusable failure of imagination and investment. Emilia Lima is doing something sacred. She's creating space for Black women to unlearn survival mode and step into their soft girl era, not because they're giving up on ambition, but because they're redefining what strength looks like. They're learning that saying no without guilt is powerful, that setting boundaries without apology is necessary, that resting without explanation is revolutionary, that softness in a world that demanded they be hard, that punished them for any sign of vulnerability, is the ultimate act of self love and resistance. Here's the truth that should shake us all awake. The next Carlin Purcell is out there right now. She's brilliant. She's determined. She's building something that could change her community, her industry, maybe even the world. And she's wondering if she has what it takes, not because she lacks talent or vision or work ethic, but because the system keeps telling her she's not enough. Because every door she approaches requires a key she was never given, because she's exhausted from carrying everyone while building everything. So, what are you going to do about it? What support will you provide? What policy will you advocate for? What personal action will you take to help remove the barriers faced by Black women navigating both motherhood and entrepreneurship? How will you contribute to a more equitable and empowering environment for all? Because here's what I know for certain: we can't keep celebrating survival stories and ignoring the conditions that make survival necessary. We can't keep applauding resilience while maintaining the systems that demand it. We can't keep telling Black women they're exceptional while refusing to give them the resources that would make success accessible, not exceptional. The next Carlin is watching. She's listening. She's wondering if this world has space for her dreams. Let's prove that it does. Let's build something better. Let's create a world where Black women entrepreneurs don't have to be superhuman to succeed. They just have to be supported, believed in, and given the same opportunities everyone else takes for granted. That starts with us today, right now. No more excuses, no more waiting. The time is now, and the responsibility is ours. Let's stop celebrating their survival and start dismantling what made it necessary.